Welcome to Put a Word on It, a podcast presented by Men of Valor. In each episode, we're going to talk with a different man, but each one with a unique journey from brokenness to freedom. I'm your host, Rudy Kalis. I spent over 40 years as a TV sportscaster, then retired and joined the Men of Valor program as a volunteer. So join the conversation. Reconciling men to God, their families, and society. Well, welcome to another edition of Put a Word on It. This is a special one for me because I've been thinking about this man for several weeks. A special guest that I want you to meet because he's a fighter. And I mean a real, genuine fighter. Eric Melton was a world kickboxing champion, former champion. And I was there the night that he won that championship. And what happened to him is just a powerful story of the things he fought for all of his life. And then came to the point where God became vitally important in his life. And now the things that are doing are incredible. But we go back. This fighter has taken that talent to places that we wouldn't believe. So it blew my mind. So you went to the walls, to the prison? And tell me about that. And fought how many guys?
Well, in the early 80s, my coach was the lieutenant there. And I needed to find some people that I could hit really hard. That wasn't, you can't hit your friends. I was just starting the fighting. And so he came up with an idea. He goes, these guys, I've talked to him. He goes, he knew them. He'd been there for years. He said, they want to box. They have a boxing ring. They have boxing gloves. So I said, yeah, it was a little intimidating at first. And even though I basically knew a bunch of them. So I go out there and we'll go in there and got in the ring. And it was explained, we just going to fight, box.
Are you wearing headgear?
Yeah.
For some
Headgear, really nice gloves.
Okay.
And so I get in the ring and what I found out was they were tough as nails, but really couldn't box.
Yeah.
So I laugh sometimes over the time. I spent quite a while there. We knocked out 21 in one day.
You knocked him out.
Knocked him cold. And but that was who I was. But what helped me is I got to fight. Every time you're in the ring and you're sparring in a gym somewhere, there's a certain point where you just can't take somebody's head off or try because they're your friends or, at some point. But these guys wanted to go. Every fight was to the max. And so it really helped my career.
See, but you're making me think of you as a kid. Fighting was your world as a kid, wasn't it? Why?
All my brothers were 6'4". My dad's 6'5". My little brother's 6'4", and my sister was 5'10". And there was me. I was, when I started fighting, I was fighting at the 130 mark and barely 5'7", 5'8". And I did grow some, but as I went on. But like my mom passed. She got real sick when she was 12 and was gone for a while and then died when I was 14. But all that whole time, Jace he was like the all conference football. They had defenses built around him. He's so tough. And Mark was the baseball player, basketball player. And then Mom, right before she died, she asked me to play in the band. I lived in a world that playing in the band was not a smart idea. So only instrument we could afford was left at the band. They give you instruments back then. And it was a clarinet. Now I'm walking into a world of just monster people and I've got a clarinet in my hand and I started using it as a weapon. I mean, hold the handle. And I was on the bus one day. Miss Hester was the bus driver and this kid kept messing with me all the time because I'm from the Melton family and I'm supposed to be tough and I really wasn't. And so I remember the first day I ever hit anybody and I turned around with a clarinet in my hand and just clocked him. And Miss Hester, the bus driver, she's old school. She said, it's about time. Just kept driving. And so that's kind of started me in the world of fighting back. Just my world. The way I saw it was I was fighting back. I wasn't fighting to fight. I never wanted to fight. Even when I was boxing, I fought for the money. I fought to pay rent. I fought to eat. I didn't fight to ever be a champion. I had 58 fights. That's way too many fights. But I fought to make it through the next day. And that's just what I did.
Did you have an anger issue?
I didn't think I did. But now that I'm adult and looking back, I'm sure I did. Because when I teach martial arts to children now, I mean, I see kids all the time being picked on. It's like being a black belt to me, and when I mention martial arts, I'm not saying this is nobody else's opinion but mine. Being a black belt is knowing what to do and when to do it. Everything else is push-ups and sit-ups. You got to do your drill work, but it's not martial arts. Martial arts is understanding. And the key to understanding how to fight back is knowing when to stop. You cross a line real fast. And I teach all the kids, I said, you got to know when to stop. And I didn't know when to stop. I mean, I took everything to an extreme.
Did you ever get in trouble with the law then?
All the time. And is all that. I ran with a group. Now, we didn't call ourselves a gang. We didn't have a name or anything like that. It was a group of really lost human beings. And they were just like me. I didn't like them, though. They didn't much like me. But we kept each other safe. And then we just got a little older and started doing things that we shouldn't do. And because my mom was dead and my dad was gone. And so you have no... When I was 12, I came to the Lord. Went to church with my grandmother in the neighborhood about a mile down the road, and we weren't allowed to go to church. I mean, I'm not sure why, I just wasn't allowed. But I went with her, and I was sitting on the 6th row, and I remember all this stuff. And the Lord called me. Not a doubt in my mind. I have never felt an emotion like that in my life. So they kept singing this song over and over and over again. So I get out. I finally walked down. I was 12 and just gave my heart to God. But then I went home. My mom was still alive. She goes, "Your dad is going to kill you for doing what you just did." Because everybody's talking about the little Melton kid, and came to Christ. Maybe he'll survive or something like that. Because we were rough people. And so never heard anything from the church. And just went on with life. And the way I saw things is my code of honor. And I thought this when I was 12. Well, we would do whatever we needed to do to survive our group. And I wouldn't take any money for anything we stole. That was my okay with God. Because I truly felt that what I was doing was wrong. So to justify it to a 12, 13-year-old, if I didn't take any money from it, and I just let them have it, then I would help them. But in my brain, I was doing the right thing. As long as I made sure they were okay. And then as long as I didn't take the money. Never took a penny.
You get into martial arts. I was there in 92, was it? When you won the world's championship?
I did.
Busted your eardrum?
My eardrum, my jaw, both my hands ended up being broke. And my ribs on both sides.
In that fight?
In that fight.
And I watched it, and yet you won.
The key to that fight, if I look back at it, it was he didn't realize I was so hurt. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way I was raised. I mean, it's like, showing pain was not good. Dad, he's gone now, but he would whoop us. And me, my two brothers. And the first time we would cry, he would get it worse. So you just learn not to feel it. And he didn't, and you probably don't want to put this on there, but I found some letters after he passed away where he might scare about me. And it was, my wife found them and she didn't want to give them to me, but she,
it's hard.
Yeah.
Even to talk about
the
memory.
It's like, how much he didn't like me and stuff like that. There's one thing to say it, but there's another thing to write it down.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
If you don't mind, I think we got to let people hear that. I think that's powerful because there's a lot of the men that we deal with who've had that kind of a relationship with fathers who weren't there. In 2010, though, what happened to you? And you started writing a book.
I was going to church with my son, and my eyes went out, and just totally couldn't see. And I was able to slow the car down. So then I went to the doctor, and he said that I had a 0.7 something, a tumor sitting on my octave nerve, and that it was bad. So he does all the stuff, and now he just this is where my doctor calls me on 5:30 on Friday night and says, "Listen, I can't operate on this. I mean, you're going to pass." And I said, "When?" I said, it could be weeks, it could be months. And so I started thinking about all the things that I've done in life. And I couldn't remember things. So I started writing them down. 1,000 years earlier, a police officer pulled me on the side of the road one time when I was 18, and he says, "You need to leave town." And I said, "Okay." He says, "Why?" I said, he goes, "There's some people after you, and they're going to take you out." So I have nowhere to go. I have nothing. By this time, I wasn't living at home. I was just sort of living in place to place, car to car. So he pulls out a piece of paper. He writes down there, "What do you like to do?" I said, "Not a whole lot. I like to fight." He goes, "Fight." I like to write stories. And he wrote that down, and he goes, now he pulls over and he goes, "What can we make money from?" He goes, I said, "Well, fighting." He goes, "Well, why don't you go to Nashville and get into a boxing ring and fight?" And I said, "I don't know anybody." He goes, "Okay, I know a boxing school out in 12th Avenue." So go. So I'll go out there. So he fills my tank up with gas with his credit card and hands me $7.43. That's all the money he had on him. So I never went back. So got on the interstate, drove to Nashville, and that's where I started boxing, right there.
So you started writing things down.
And just trying to remember the past, the stories of all the fights I've been into, and just try to put them in order. I've gone back a million times and rewritten them, but I called Vanderbilt and Dr. Weaver, and he said, "I can take care of this." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, it's bad." We'd send him our stuff. The doctor sent him, so he goes, "But I can do this." And so they went right in and took it out. But it messed up my memory a lot. Sometimes, not so much now. It's like I can look at somebody and know them forever. And then I don't know. But then there's like a door. If they keep talking to me, it'll trigger something and the door opens and it all comes back. I don't know how to explain that, but it all come back. And so I wrote all the stories, started writing all the stories down of all the fights, and there's been a few. And they're trying to figure out like in between the rounds, like the coach talks to you. That's what my book was about. And no one's read it. I mean, it's been under my bed. I just write for me. It's just how I felt and why did I do that? And it's like, where was God in this? And I like to think sometimes that God puts things for me into like fence posts. I'm just chugging along and then just like something will happen. And I've learned to go, I don't understand this, but I truly believe God wants me to go the other direction. So I just turn left or right and just continue my life and just try to walk away from things. And I've done pretty well with that. Mm-hmm. Just know that, God's there. That's God. I don't have to figure it out. And I just need to go another direction because this is God saying that's enough. Go.
The name of our program is Put a Word on It. Have you thought about that? What kind of a word would you put on it?
That would be why. I used to, why me? Why do I have to live like this? And I used to do that all the time. And I went to Guatemala to train gangs. I was asked by a church, all we want you to do is train the gangs. And I would go to a place called Zone 18. It makes my why look silly. I mean, it's always someone else a whole lot worse than you are. And my why was I just cannot believe I have to live like this, And, I was homeless for a long time. And why? But then when I went to Zone 18, I mean, everybody they have no chance whatsoever. And all I could do for them was, I was supposed to train the gangs, self-defense and stuff like that. I trained them how to fight. And I told them, keep their hands up and keep swinging. And one of the preachers down there said, "Hey, we want you to teach them self-defense." It is self-defense. Self-defense to me is fighting back. I learned that at the prison, fighting back. Every time I'd fight those guys, you could see a purpose in their eyes. They weren't there just to hurt me. They were fighting back. Everybody has, and you make mistakes in life, and I've made a bunch. And you just have to fight back. And I said, these kids, their why overshadowed my why. These kids are just trying to live. Me, I figured out I was just, it's tough. I mean, it is, but I wasn't trying to live every day. These kids were trying to live every day.
You've been involved in this violent world all your life, and yet now God's hand is in your life. You not only teach to fight, you have your own place where you're teaching martial arts, but it's all with the vision of telling them about what God can do for them, isn't it?
We have it on our walls, our verses on our walls. And if you ask me, do I believe in God? Absolutely. Absolutely. Customers have asked me that before. And, but I don't preach to them in a way of verbally. When I'm teaching a person how to survive, how to fight back, it's always with there's a time to stop, but that's my faith that talks to you, that teaches to you. I'm not shy about telling people how I feel if they ask, but we open our doors to everyone. Everyone. I had a girl from Mexico. They just settled here. She couldn't speak English. And she slapped another child right there in class. Just slapped her. And I was like going, are you serious? And the other little girls, I don't know what was said, what was done. So first thing I did was, listen, you can't come here. Okay. And so I talked to her dad and they left. And I sat and I mulled over this for days. So I called her back and said, you're just the kind of kid I need here. You're just the kind of kid that I need to teach. Talk to her dad. So she came back, and that was years ago. I've had 28 black belts in 40 years. And you can go to classes where they have 50 in one class, but I've had 28 in 40 years because I train them the way I believe they should train. And she made it to black belt. And you ought to have seen her, and she's off in college now. I keep up with her sometimes. And she would train the other children, help train, and the kindest person in the world. But you didn't see it change. It just changed. One day she was mad at the world. She couldn't speak the language. She couldn't, school was harsh. And she was just fighting back the only way she knew how. Just give her another direction, another way to fight back.
Eric, you've touched a lot of lives, including mine.
Sure.
Thank you for what you've done. What a life. All right, let me put a word on it. Why? Well, I never knew what he was going to say, but when he says why, and you think about his life, how many of us say that to us? How many guys that are incarcerated say, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why do the rest of us say that in all our lives? He's asked that question all of his life. He's been a fighter all of his life, but now he sees why. He's now with that organization, Mpact, his group. They teach self-defense. They teach young kids. He's doing what God gave him inside and burned inside of him, and is now using it for good and telling him that there's a God who loves him, who can help you control your temper so you don't have to ask why. That's the joy of this. I hope you enjoyed Eric Melton. Thank you for joining us again. We'll be back again next time for another edition of Put a Word on It.